Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to the Airthings Masters tournament in 2020. We're again in the semi-final stage. It's of course the great match game between Timur Rajabov and Daniil Dubov. Yesterday, Timur Rajabov, of course, won the first match game. In the second match game today, Timur Rajabov also had a great game. He won the first game. Now, if Timur Rajabov wins only one more game, it's over for Daniil Dubov. And let's check out on what happened. Incredible stuff, basically. And I think we had really, so far, such a great tournament. Daniil Dubov also played so far such a beautiful tournament. Timur Rajabov maybe also surprise of the tournament. But if we think about it harder, Timur didn't expose himself a little bit. He didn't play so many tournaments, so basically we couldn't see how strong Timur Rajabov actually is. And in this tournament he showed such great skills, and he is of course the deserved leader so far in the match game against Daniil Dubov. So here Timur played now with the white pieces and played knight to f3. Dubov responded with move knight to f6. We have c4, b6, going into Anglo-Indian Queen's Indian setup. So there are many things that can happen. Basically a Nimzo Indian can apply here, a Bogo Indian can happen, really even a Queen's Gambit declined similar structure can happen. So many things. This is a flexible setup by black, also by white. And here Timur Rajabov goes with move d4, bishop to b7, and now after g3 we have now again the Queen's Indian setup. If you take the knight immediately, bishop to f3, then e takes f3, okay, you have double up the pawn structure, but this bishop is very active. It's of course a monster bishop on this long diagonal. So after the move g3, here Daniil Dubov plays in sort of a double fianchetto style. Here after the move bishop to g2 we have bishop to g7, and now comes Carlsen here by Timur Rajabov. If you play, for instance, instead of this bishop to g7, if you play c5 immediately, I got crushed recently in this particular line. That's why I thought that I wanted to tell you some particular lines. I think here it's very important now to advance the pawn, because after e6 you can basically castle. That's, I think, the very cool part of this opening, because after e takes d5, c takes d5, and the problem is now that you cannot take this pawn. If you take it with the bishop, then knight to c3 could happen, bishop to b7, and now e4, and you have troubles now, because if you play bishop to g7, then e5 will happen. This is a very risky choice. And if you play d6, in order to prevent this idea, still rook to e1 and e5 could happen. So it's a poison pawn sort of variation. In this particular case, even if you take here with the knight to d5, then again you could face some problems with knight to g5. You see we have a double attack against the knight, so it's basically game over. So I think this is really something that you should know after move c5, d5, and if your opponent tries to break the position, because you see we have now really a triple attack against this pawn on d5. Here simply Carlsen, really nice idea. And now after knight to c3, it's really a bad position for black. So, but okay, that was, I think, something, as I said, that you should know. After move bishop to g7, here Carlsen was played by Timur Rajabov. We have Carlsen also by Dubov, knight to c3, and now knight to e4. When I faced several times this opening, I tried always to move bishop to d2 after knight takes d2, queen to d2, and okay, maybe I've lost the bishop pair in an early stage of the game, but I still think this is playable, because we can push the pawn on e4 immediately, and we would have really a powerful central here, a powerful pawn central control. So but here after move knight to e4, Timur Rajabov plays a really also great line, knight to e4. After bishop to e4 he plays bishop to e3, and he has brought out now his minor pieces. Although this bishop is very powerful on this long diagonal, what this bishop on e4 creates is a positional pin. This positional pin means that this knight is a little bit stuck. If we manage to move the knight somewhere, maybe on g5, h4, then we can of course trade off the bishops and go maybe into a simplified line. But basically this doesn't help out Daniil Dubov, this line. Although it's maybe a simplified line, but it doesn't bring black so much. It's not such an active game. Here after move bishop to e3, here finally Daniil Dubov goes with the move c5, and we have now queen to d2, building this queen and bishop battery. What we want to do is of course trade off the dark square bishop, because the dark square bishop in every case is also a great attacking piece, but it's also a great defensive piece in front of the king. If we get rid of the bishop, then of course black could face some dark square problems here in front of the king. So here d6, we have bishop to h6, knight to d7, here rook from f to d1, and now knight to f6, here played by Daniil Dubov, getting the knight on a very good square, because you cannot prevent anymore the trades of bishops, so that's why you need another defender in front of the king. So that's why it's a natural idea when your opponent takes out one knight, then to reload a little bit and then go with your other knight to f6 and still have a good protection of the king. So bishop to g7, king to g7, and now rook to c1. Very compact setup here by Teimur Radjabov. He has now great activity with the rooks. You see the rooks are on the most active files on the C and D file, because there could be some tensions here on the D file. If something gets open, then the queen could be endangered. So at least it's an equal position. It's not about that Teimur Radjabov has here a decisive advantage, because although we got rid of the key defender, which was the bishop on g7. It's not this opposite side attack game. If you're familiar maybe with some Yugoslav attack, when white castles on the queen side, then to go h4, h5, and then trying with the rook on h1 to build maybe this queen and bishop better when we trade off the bishops, then maybe to deliver checkmate on the h file. So far it's not possible, because if you try h4, h5 attacks, then you weaken of course your own king. So that's why it's not an opposite side attack game, but still a great setup so far by white. So queen to c7 played by Dubov. We have knight to h4, rook to b8, preparing some b5 pawn breakthroughs. Here in the game, bishop to e4, and now after knight to e4, here queen to e3. The knight is again challenged, knight to f6, and now Teimur Radjabov goes with the move queen to g5. The idea is clear. We're preventing some h6 ideas. Then you get knight to f5, and then we can take out the pawn. It would be a losing game if you try h6. So that's why here after the move queen to g5, king to h8 was played, and now queen to h6. The queen is very dangerous here. In some occasions we could try to deflect somehow this knight from the defense, but it's a long-term plan. It's not working immediately. The knight is still good here on f6. What we want to do is really simplify the position from black perspective, maybe trade off the queens, going into a drawish endgame. But as I said, Daniil Dubov has to win some games, so he had to play active in the game. Rook from f to c8 was played. We have knight to f3 by Teimur Radjabov. We have king to g8, and now b3, simply fixing the pawn structure, really having a complete position again. And now a6 by Dubov, trying again this b5 motif. So here knight to g5, we have queen to d8, and now knight to f3. Here Teimur Radjabov doesn't want to risk anything. He plays again back with the knight. He is basically waiting, and that's the experience of Teimur Radjabov. He is of course a much more experienced player than Daniil Dubov. He knows when to attack. He's basically waiting Daniil Dubov to attack, and when Daniil attacks, we have seen also, unfortunately for Daniil Dubov, I really love his chess, but some of his attacks were a little bit inaccurate. I think that Teimur Radjabov sensed that in their match game, and he basically played calm games. That's why he won also many games against Daniil Dubov. Here after move knight to f3, it's basically that he's saying to Dubov, you try to attack, I'm just going to lean back a little bit and wait, and we'll see what we are trying to do. So here after move knight to f3, queen to d7, and now king to g2, we have queen to e6. And you see, it's like Teimur Radjabov is inviting Daniil Dubov to attack. He's provoking him a little bit, and the queen on e6 is of course very active. But if you can notice, the queen sometimes in the center of the board can be also an object of the attack, and this will be a problem now, I think, in the continuation of the game. After the move queen to e6, we have rook to d2 by Radjabov. We have queen to e4, and now king to f1, protecting this pawn, because what we want to do now is to play rook to d3, and you see rook to e3 is very dangerous. Rook to e3 would maybe even trap the queen. What we want to do is also prepare this idea with an h3 move. So rook to c7, and we have rook to d3, queen to f5, king to g2, and now again queen to e4, and again king to f1. Again, Teimur Radjabov is saying, okay, we can do some perpetuals if you like, then it's a draw. I have this win from the first round in which I won the game with the black pieces. So still you're the one that needs a win. And here after move rook to c8, now d5 played by Teimour Radjabov. Very nice move. He locked out the queen, and you see now the queen is a little bit trapped here. Here after the move b5, it's a huge mistake here by Daniil Dubov. Here maybe a better idea is to play the move knight to g4, but that's the problem of this game now. It's basically again a drawish line, but it's basically the best move. After move knight to g4, okay, here Teimour Radjabov could have this great tactic: queen to h7, king to h7, and now knight to g5, knight to, after king to g7, knight takes e4, and okay, Daniil Dubov can also take out the pawn, king to g2, and now knight to g4. It's again probably the drawish line, because in this top grandmaster level I think that none of them would lose this game. But b5 is very risky because now here Teimour Radjabov found really this trap idea. h3, you see now all of the squares are restricted for the queen. The only square for the queen is the square f5. The other squares are really taken, and in the game a new mistake by Daniil Dubov. He played the move rook to b8, and here after the move g4, now the queen is trapped. The queen doesn't have good squares. The only way to defend the queen is this move that Daniil Dubov found. Of course, it's the move e5, because now after the move rook to e3, at least we have now the square f4, and then we could trade off the queens after queen takes f4. But okay, Radjabov sensed that the queen is still endangered. He tried d takes e6. After queen to e6, we have provoked at least a new weakness. You see, first Daniil Dubov had to solve these problems of the queen, but we have now a new strategical element, and it's of course the backward pawn. It's really bad in the game. Queen to f4, simply attacking this weakness in the position. We have knight to e8, and now rook to e3. This wasn't the best continuation for Radjabov. Here I think knight to g5 is winning immediately. Knight to g5 here, queen to c8, and now knight to e4. You cannot protect this pawn. You could maybe try rook to e7, but we can simply take and go into simplified line. We can trade off these pieces, maybe even try e4, fixing the pawn structure. So going on with an extra pawn is of course much better for white, and I'm sure Teimour Radjabov wouldn't lose this continuation. But he tried rook to e3. It's not that this move is losing or it's a bad move, but it's a slightly worse continuation here for white. After move rook to e3, we have queen to d7, and now knight to g5 comes a little bit too late. But okay, here d5 played by Dubov, which wasn't again the best of moves. Maybe trying rook from c to b7, or rook here trying to build some kind of fortress with our rooks, batteries, really compact positions. d5, okay, we can play c takes d5. After queen to d5, king to g1. The queen is still endangered. We have still problems with these pawns. This pawn on c5 is also weakness, although you can advance it like Dubov did after c4. We have b takes c4. We have b takes c4, but now this knight comes very active into the game. We have now a knight to f6 idea, sneaking in with the queen. We can play also rook to c3, building this battery, and simply attack again a new isolated pawn. Although it's a supported pass pawn here that Daniil Dubov has, but it's a weakness. I think it has to be always protected by both of these rooks. The queen is also attacking already on this rank, the pawn on c4. So in my opinion, much better continuation here for white. So after move knight to e4, now comes really the critical moment of the game. Rook to b7 was played by Daniil Dubov, and it was a huge blunder, because you can now maybe pause the video and try to see now the best continuation for white. It's of course a great tactic that Teimour Radjabov saw immediately. Okay. The move is of course rook takes c4, because if you take queen takes c4, then you get knight to f6, discovered attack by the queen, and with the check, and you lose simply too much decisive material. So that's why here after the move rook to c4, rook to b1 was played by Daniil Dubov, and here after move king to h2, white is much better. Here rook queen to d1, we have king to g3, although the king is on a strange place, but you can only place some checks. You can maybe try queen to g1, but we can hide here queen to king to h4. You cannot do perpetuals. That's the most important thing. Nothing is wrong. Nothing went wrong here for Teimour Radjabov. After move king to g3, Here we have h5, and Teimur Radjabov simply regroups. Rook to f3. He has now, of course, a new target. It's the weak f7 square. Here f5 was played by Dubov. We have g takes f5. Queen to h1, again, not a problem. King to h4, very cool move here by Teimur Radjabov. Although, as I said, again, the king is on a strange place, but the king is not endangered. You don't have any support. Basically, the only piece that's attacking white's king is, of course, only the queen. So it's simply not enough here. After move king to h4, rook to g1 was played. Again, rook to g3. Here, Teimur Radjabov plays a calm game. Rook to b5, and here after rook to c8. In this position, Daniil Dubov resigned. So what can you do here? We can try king to f7, but even I think rook takes e8 followed with knight to d6 is a possibility. We have also here f takes g6 ideas. We can do whatever we like. It's a winning continuation, and in this position Daniil Dubov resigned, which means that Teimur Radjabov is the winner of the match game between Dubov and Radjabov, and moves up now into the finals, where he'll play against the winner between Aronian and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. And I wanted to also talk about something about this decision by FIDE, that they kicked out Teimur Radjabov from the candidates because he refused to play because of this virus situation. Whenever I see that Teimur Radjabov is playing good, I'm feeling so good myself, because that was really one of the worst decisions by FIDE. And I've read many comments that said, okay, why should Radjabov play? He couldn't win the candidates anyway. So you can see now, if Teimur Radjabov would have maybe even won this tournament, I'm not sure if he would have won it, but he had, I think, realistic chances to be sort of a dark horse maybe of the tournament. He could also be a huge surprise, but still this guy can play, and I couldn't believe what happened in 2020. I managed to get a draw against Teimur Radjabov on Airthings Masters live stream, which was really one of my best moments in 2020. I was so happy, I was so proud of me when I played a draw, and as I said, against such a strong opponent. And I wish Teimur Radjabov really the best in the continuation of his career, because he deserves simply to be in the candidates. And if FIDE would be a normal organization, then they should really start the candidates all over again. It's not a problem that they played so far, this 5 rounds or 6 rounds that they've played, but in my opinion they should let Teimur Radjabov play, because in 2 years, when maybe Teimur Radjabov has again the opportunity to play, then of course he will be much older, and he's maybe not so motivated anymore. He deserved his place in the candidates, and in my opinion, as I said, he should be rewarded, and the FIDE should start this tournament all over again. So congratulations to Radjabov. I'm really happy that he's in the finals. Not that I have anything against Dubov, but I really love to see Teimur Radjabov playing good. Daniil Dubov gave us really such joy in this tournament. He plays such an attractive chess. Congratulations also to Daniil Dubov. He stuck to his style, which was, I think, a great thing for us. And thank you, Daniil, for this incredible tournament. But still, Teimur Radjabov deserves his win, and deserves his place in the final. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I really enjoyed the semi-final between Radjabov and Dubov. If you want to see the coverage of this tournament so far by me, check out my whole playlist. Here's the link. And if you want to see maybe the game between me and Radjabov, here's also the link. You can also check out. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.